The lecture hall stretched 3 stories high, filled with 2,000 cadets from 70 different species. Professor Varix adjusted his optical sensors and prepared to begin the most important lesson of the semester. Military History 401. The topic that separated competent officers from dead ones. Today, he announced, his voice echoing through the amphitheater, we discuss the most dangerous military commanders in galactic history. A Draxian student in the 3rd row clicked his mandibles impatiently. We know this already, Professor. The Siege Lords of Cravath, the Hive Queens of Terminus, the Machine Concordat. Varix's facial tendrils curled in what might have been amusement. Those are the ones who lost, Cadet. I am teaching you about the ones who won. The holographic display flickered to life behind him. Images of destroyed fleets materialized in the air, shattered worlds, burning stations. The mathematical precision of absolute military dominance. Over the past 3 centuries, Varix continued, the Galactic Federation has expanded into what we optimistically call uncharted territory. We have encountered 17 major civilizations. 14 joined peacefully. 2 were subjugated after brief conflicts. And 1 he paused for effect. 1 nearly destroyed us completely. A human girl in the back row looked up from her datapad. She had been quiet throughout the semester, taking notes but never volunteering answers. Her name was Maya Chen, and she wore the standard cadet uniform with an ease that suggested military life was nothing new to her. Varix noticed her attention, and felt a twinge of something his species called anticipation. The species designation was human, planet of origin, Earth. They called themselves Terrans when they wanted to sound official, and humanity when they wanted to sound poetic. And when they wanted to sound terrifying, they simply said nothing at all. The Draxian cadet laughed. Humans? I have studied with humans for 3 years. They are weak, soft. They cry at the deaths of strangers and refuse to eat sentient species even when starving. Yes, Varix said quietly. They cry. They also invented the concept of total war, the scorched earth policy, mutually assured destruction, and something they called, with typical human understatement, winning at any cost. The hologram shifted. A star system appeared, then collapsed into fire. First contact occurred in 2287. A Federation exploration vessel encountered a human military ship near the border of their space. The captain of the human vessel, following his species protocols, attempted communication. He was polite, cordial. He offered trade agreements and cultural exchange. Varix's voice hardened. Our captain saw a primitive species with outdated weapons and inferior shielding. He saw an opportunity for easy expansion. He opened fire without warning. The lecture hall had gone silent. The human ship was destroyed with all hands. 342 souls. The Federation captain filed his report, recommended immediate military occupation of the human home system, and requested a promotion. Maya Chen's expression had not changed, but her knuckles had gone white where she gripped her datapad. The Federation Council approved. We sent the 7th Fleet, 18 capital ships, 400 support vessels, 60,000 troops. We had defeated entire civilizations with less. The hologram showed the fleet entering the Sol system. Humanity's home. The humans were waiting. Varix let that sink in for a moment. They had taken the wreckage of their destroyed ship and reverse-engineered our weapons, our shields, our communication systems, in 6 weeks, a feat our best scientists said was impossible. They had installed these systems on vessels that were, by our standards, laughably primitive. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, nuclear warheads. He smiled, though the expression was not pleasant. They turned their entire asteroid belt into a minefield. They hid ships inside their gas giants. They weaponized their own satellites, and turned their orbital habitats into fortresses. And they waited for us to come close enough. The Draxian cadet had stopped laughing. The Battle of Sol lasted 4 hours. The 7th Fleet was annihilated. Total casualties 73,000, human losses 2,600, and that was just the opening move. Varix changed the hologram again. Now it showed a face, human, male. Perhaps 60 years old by their standards, with gray hair and eyes the color of winter storms. This, Varix said, is the man who commanded their defense. General Marcus Chen, the man who took our best fleet and turned it into debris. The man who then took the fight to us. Maya Chen's head had snapped up at the mention of the name. Several students near her noticed and leaned away slightly. For the next 8 years, Varix continued, General Chen led human forces in what they called the Reclamation War, and what we called the Great Terror. He did not simply defeat us. He humiliated us. He attacked our supply lines, destroyed our shipyards, and turned our own tactics against us with improvements we had never considered. The hologram showed battle after battle, human ships, still primitive by galactic standards, tearing through Federation forces with brutal efficiency. He used psychological warfare. He broadcast our defeats across every communication channel. He sent our own survivors back to us with messages carved into their flesh. He made examples of our commanders and left their ships drifting as warnings. Varex's voice carried a note of respect now, tinged with old fear. But the worst part, the truly terrifying part, was that he always gave us a choice. Surrender and be treated fairly, or fight and be destroyed. He kept his word on both counts. Prisoners were returned unharmed. Resistors were eliminated with extreme prejudice. A Krell student raised a tentacle. How did the war end, Professor? It ended when the Federation Council finally agreed to negotiate. When we acknowledged human sovereignty. When we paid reparations for first contact. When we made General Marcus Chen the first human ambassador to the Galactic Federation and gave him a seat on the Security Council. Varex turned off the hologram and looked directly at Maya Chen. We surrendered, completely, unconditionally, because General Chen made it clear that the alternative was the complete destruction of the Federation. And we believed him. The lecture hall erupted in whispers. Maya Chen sat perfectly still. Now, Varex said, raising his voice over the noise, for your final examination, you will each be required to identify military commanders from historical footage. The feeds will be unlabeled. You will have 30 seconds per image. This will test your ability to recognize threats in real time. He activated the examination system. Each student's datapad flickered to life with a different image. Maya Chen's screen showed a photograph from the Reclamation War, a command bridge, officers gathered around tactical displays, and in the center, directing the battle, a familiar face. She studied it for exactly 3 seconds. Then she smiled. Not the polite smile of a diligent student. The smile of someone who had heard this story 100 times at family dinners. She raised her hand. Varex called on her. Yes, Cadet Chen? Professor, she said, her voice carrying across the silent lecture hall. I believe there has been an error with my examination feed. Every head turned toward her. The image you are showing me, she continued, is not an ancient warlord. Varex's tendrils stiffened. I assure you, Cadet, the system is functioning properly. If you cannot identify the subject, you may submit a written analysis explaining why. Maya Chen stood up. She was not tall by human standards, but something in her posture made her seem larger. Oh, I can identify him, Professor. You are showing me my grandfather. The lecture hall exploded. Cadets turned in their seats. The Draxian student who had mocked humanity earlier looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Professor Varex's optical sensors focused on Maya with sudden, intense interest. Your grandfather, he repeated slowly. Marcus Chen, Maya confirmed. And yes, before you ask, he did tell us about the war. Every Remembrance Day. He considered it the worst 8 years of his life, not because of the combat, but because it meant thousands of people died who should have been friends instead. She sat back down, still smiling that dangerous smile. He used to say that the Federation made one critical mistake at first contact. You assumed that because we were kind, we were weak. Because we valued life, we could not take it. Because we preferred peace, we did not understand war. Varex did not interrupt. But humans have been fighting each other for 10,000 years, Professor. We know war. We know it in our bones, in our history, in our nightmares. We study it so we can prevent it. And when we cannot prevent it, she met his gaze directly. We win it. The silence in the lecture hall was absolute. 2,000 students held their breath. Professor Varex's tendrils curled again, this time in genuine respect. Cadet Chen, he said formally, you have passed your examination. With honors. Class dismissed. As the other students filed out, many casting nervous glances at Maya, Varex approached her desk. Your grandfather, he said quietly, was the finest military mind I have ever studied. And I do mean studied. I was there, Cadet Chen. I was a junior tactical officer on the 7th Fleet. Maya looked up at him with new understanding. You survived Seoul. We win it. The silence in the lecture hall was absolute. 2,000 students held their breath. Professor Varex's tendrils curled again, this time in genuine respect. Cadet Chen, he said formally, you have passed your examination. With honors. Class dismissed. As the other students filed out, many casting nervous glances at Maya, Varex approached her desk. Your grandfather, he said quietly, was the finest military mind I have ever studied. And I do mean studied. I was there, Cadet Chen. I was a junior tactical officer on the 7th Fleet. Maya looked up at him with new understanding. You survived, Saul. I survived because your grandfather allowed survivors. Because he understood that returning defeated warriors would spread fear more effectively than simply killing them. It was calculated, brilliant, absolutely ruthless. He paused. After the war, I dedicated my career to understanding how you defeated us. I thought if I could teach the next generation what humans were capable of, perhaps we would never be foolish enough to underestimate your species again. Maya smiled, gentler this time. Grandpa Marcus always said the same thing about the Federation. He wanted us to understand you, respect you, so we would never have to fight you again. Your grandfather still teaches, I understand. Guest lectures at the Terran Naval Academy. He is 94 years old and still sharp as a blade. Varex's tendrils trembled slightly. If you would permit it, Cadet Chen, I would very much like to meet him. He would like that, Professor. He always says we won the war but lost friends. He prefers to make friends now. As Maya gathered her materials and left the lecture hall, Varex returned to his podium. The hologram still showed Marcus Chen's face, frozen in time, directing a battle that changed galactic history. The professor stood there for a long time, remembering the terror of Sul, the horror of watching his fleet torn apart, the grinding certainty that humanity would not stop until the Federation was ashes. And then he remembered the peace talks. Marcus Chen sitting across the negotiation table, offering reasonable terms, actually listening to Federation concerns, treating former enemies with dignity and respect. Two sides of the same incredibly dangerous coin. Outside the lecture hall, Maya Chen walked through the corridors of the academy, datapad tucked under her arm. Other cadets moved aside as she passed, and she pretended not to notice. She pulled out her communicator and sent a message across the light years to Earth. Grandpa, you made another professor cry today during the Reclamation War lecture. I think he wants to meet you. Also, I got top marks in military history. You would be proud. The response came hours later, after light speed delay. Well done, little warrior. Tell the professor he is welcome anytime. We old soldiers should stick together. And Maya, remember, the best victory is the one you never have to fight for. Make allies, not enemies. Love you always. Maya smiled and slipped the communicator back into her pocket. She had 4 more years at the academy. 4 more years of proving that Chen was not just a name associated with war, but also with honor, strategy, and the wisdom to know when fighting was necessary and when it was simply wasteful. Behind her, the lecture hall emptied. The lesson was over, but the education had only just begun. The next morning, Maya Chen reported for advanced combat tactics at 600 hours. The training dome sprawled across 2 kilometers of the Academy's northern sector, capable of simulating any battlefield environment in the known galaxy. Today's exercise was labeled Command Under Pressure, which meant the instructors had designed something especially unpleasant. Captain Jorath, a Kelvin with 4 arms and a reputation for breaking overconfident cadets, stood at the simulation controls. Behind him, the observation deck filled with officers and senior instructors. Word had spread about yesterday's revelation. Everyone wanted to see if Marcus Chen's granddaughter had inherited anything beyond the name. Cadet Chen, Jorath barked. You will command Blue Team. Objective: defend Research Station Kepler from hostile forces for 20 minutes. Reinforcements are en route but will arrive too late if you fail. Maya glanced at her team. 12 cadets from various species, most of whom she recognized from tactical courses. The Draxian from yesterday's lecture was among them, looking uncomfortable. Rules of engagement? She asked. Full combat simulation. Pain receptors active at 15%. Lose the station, you fail. Lose more than half your team, you fail. Lose your command center, you fail. Understood, sir. The simulation activated. Maya's vision blurred, then resolved into the interior of a space station. Alarms wailed. Red emergency lighting pulsed through corridors. Her tactical display showed enemy ships approaching fast. She opened the command channel. Blue Team, sound off. 12 voices confirmed readiness. Maya pulled up the station's schematic and ran calculations that her grandfather had taught her over chess games when she was 8 years old. Listen carefully, she said, voice calm despite the chaos. We are outnumbered 5-1. The enemy will expect us to defend the command center. We will not do what they expect. The Draxian cadet, whose name was Korvik, made a clicking sound of doubt. Abandoning command is suicide. No, Maya corrected. Abandoning command without purpose is suicide. We are going to turn this station into a trap. She transmitted orders rapidly. Korvik, take 3 others and rig the life support system to vent atmosphere on my signal. Make it look like battle damage. Sela, you and 2 engineers seal bulkheads on decks 4 through 7. Create choke points. Everyone else, grab every weapon not bolted down and fall back to the secondary reactor room. The reactor room? Someone questioned. Trust me. The enemy hit hard and fast, just as Jorath had designed. Boarding pods smashed through the station's outer hull. Combat drones swarmed through breaches. Professional, efficient, overwhelming. Maya watched from her temporary command post in the reactor room, monitoring enemy movement through security feeds. They were good, very good. They advanced in coordinated teams, clearing rooms methodically, working toward the command center where they expected to find defenders. Instead, they found empty corridors. Confused yet? Maya muttered. Good. The enemy commander apparently ordered a faster advance, assuming the defenders were regrouping. His troops pushed forward into decks 4 through 7, directly into the choke points Sela had created. Korvik, Maya said quietly. Vent atmosphere. Decks 4 through 7 only. Confirming order to vent? Confirmed. The station shuddered. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Atmosphere howled out through compromised sections, and enemy soldiers in those zones found themselves suddenly fighting explosive decompression. Their combat suits saved them from death, but the chaos disrupted their coordination. In the observation deck, Captain Jorath leaned forward. This was not standard defensive doctrine. This was something else entirely. All teams, Maya ordered, execute Phase 2. Her scattered forces emerged from hiding, not in the command center, not defending static positions. Instead, they hit the confused enemy from unexpected angles, using the station's maintenance tunnels and access shafts that did not appear on standard tactical displays. The Draxian cadet fought alongside a human, both protecting a Thalian engineer as she deployed improvised explosives. Sela led a 3-person team through ventilation ducts, dropping grenades into enemy formations from above. Pure chaos. Coordinated chaos. The enemy commander tried to adapt, pulling forces back to regroup. Maya had anticipated that too. Reactor room team, she said. Prepare the surprise. She had positioned half her forces around the secondary reactor, which the enemy naturally assumed was her last redoubt. They were right. It was her last redoubt, but she had not mentioned that the reactor room had multiple exit points and that she had rigged the main entrance with enough explosives to turn the entire section into shrapnel. The enemy stormed the reactor room. Maya's team opened fire, then retreated through the secondary exits on her signal. The enemy rushed forward, smelling victory. Maya triggered the explosives. The simulation shook. Half the enemy force simply ceased to exist in a flash of white light. The rest fell back in disarray. 15 minutes had elapsed. Maya checked her team status. 3 injuries, no deaths. The station was heavily damaged but still operational. The enemy had lost over 60% of their forces and had no idea where the defenders actually were. She opened a channel on all frequencies, including the enemy's. Attention, hostile forces. You are surrounded, outnumbered, and operating in an environment I control. You have one opportunity to surrender. After that, things become unpleasant. The enemy commander responded with impressive profanity in 3 languages. Okay then, Maya said cheerfully. Unpleasant it is. What followed was 5 minutes of absolute mayhem. Maya's forces hit the enemy from every direction simultaneously, using the station itself as a weapon. Bulkheads sealed. Gravity plating reversed. Life support fluctuated between freezing and scorching. It was not fair. It was not honorable. It was war the way her grandfather had taught her. You used every advantage, exploited every weakness, and you won. When the simulation timer hit 20 minutes, the enemy had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in closets. The simulation ended. Maya and her team materialized back in the training dome, breathing hard, adrenaline still pumping. Captain Jorath descended from the observation deck. His expression was unreadable. Cadet Chen, he said formally. That was the most unorthodox, borderline insane defensive strategy I have witnessed in 20 years of instruction. Maya stood at attention, prepared for failure notification. Jorath's mouth split in what might have been a smile. It was also tactically brilliant. 97% survival rate. Station operational. Enemy neutralized. If this were actual combat, you would receive a commendation. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by exhaustion. However, Jorath continued, you took unnecessary risks. You gambled on enemy predictability. You relied on improvisation rather than established doctrine. These factors could have resulted in catastrophic failure. Yes, sir, Maya acknowledged. But they did not. No, they did not. Because you are your grandfather's granddaughter, and apparently tactical genius is hereditary. The observation deck erupted in applause. Maya blinked in surprise. Officers who had watched the simulation were actually clapping. For her. For a cadet who had just turned their doctrine inside out and made it work through sheer audacity. Professor Varix stood among them, his tendrils curled in approval. After dismissal, Maya found Korvik waiting outside the dome. I owe you an apology, the Draxian said stiffly. Yesterday, I mocked your species. Today you proved me an idiot, Maya shrugged. You were not entirely wrong. Humans are soft. We do cry over strangers. We do refuse to eat sentient species. But that softness is a choice, Korvik, not a weakness. She met his multifaceted gaze directly. We understand compassion because we also understand cruelty. We value peace because we excel at war. We choose to be kind because we know exactly how effective we can be when we choose otherwise. Korvik clicked thoughtfully. Your grandfather taught you this? My grandfather taught me that strength without compassion is tyranny, and compassion without strength is weakness. Balance is everything. I would like to learn more, Korvik admitted. If you would teach me, Maya smiled. Study group tonight. Bring coffee. The humankind, not that synthetic garbage from the commissary. As Korvik left, Professor Varix approached. Walk with me, cadet? They strolled through the academy gardens, where students from 100 worlds studied under artificial sunlight. The diversity was stunning. The peace, even more so. I have been thinking about your grandfather, Varix said after a while, and about the war. I spent decades analyzing his tactics, his strategies, his methods. I thought I understood what made him dangerous. And now? Maya prompted. Now I realize I was studying the wrong thing. The tactics were brilliant, yes, but they were not what defeated us. What defeated us was something far more terrifying. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Your grandfather fought with absolute conviction that he was right, not militarily superior, not morally justified by some abstract principle, right in the way that matters most. He fought to protect his people, his world, his species from annihilation, and that conviction made him unstoppable. Varix's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. We were conquerors playing at war. He was a father protecting his children. There was never any contest. Maya considered this. He still has nightmares, you know? About Seoul, about the battles that came after. He won the war but never celebrated. He just made sure it would not happen again. That, Varix said, is why he was invited to join the Federation Council, why humanity holds such influence now. Your species defeated us, then refused to gloat, offered friendship instead of domination, turned enemies into allies. Grandpa says the real victory was not winning the war, it was winning the peace. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. I sent him a message, Varix admitted. Your grandfather. I invited him to give a guest lecture here at the academy. He agreed. He arrives next month. Maya grinned. Then you should prepare yourself, Professor. When Marcus Chen tells war stories, you need strong drinks and comfortable chairs. He will talk for hours. I look forward to it. Perhaps I can finally stop seeing him as the warlord who destroyed my fleet and start seeing him as the man who saved the galaxy from our arrogance. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters and composed a message home. Not just to her grandfather, but to her parents, her siblings, her entire loud, chaotic, thoroughly human family. She told them about the lecture, about the simulation, about Korvik's apology and Varix's invitation and the strange, unexpected sensation of being recognized not as a threat but as a legacy. Her grandfather's response arrived hours later, his aged face smiling from the holographic display. Maya, my dear warrior scholar, you are making this old general very proud. But remember, the goal is not to be feared. The goal is to be understood. Help them see that humans are not conquerors or victims or any simple thing. We are complex, contradictory, capable of both terrible violence and extraordinary kindness. Show them all of it. The whole truth. He paused, and his smile turned slightly mischievous. Also, tell Professor Varix I am bringing my war medals and 3 bottles of scotch. We are going to have a proper conversation about Saul. He deserves to know what we were thinking, and I deserve to know what he was thinking. It is about time. Maya laughed, saluted the recording, and closed the channel. Outside her window, the academy sparkled under distant stars. Students from every corner of the galaxy studied together, trained together, learned to see each other as allies rather than threats. Her grandfather's generation had fought the war that made this peace possible. Her generation would have to maintain it, nurture it, protect it from those who thought strength meant domination. It would not be easy. Peace never was. But then again, humans had never chosen easy paths. They chose right ones, and that, Maya Chen thought as she settled into her bunk, made all the difference in the galaxy. The story of the Reclamation War would be told for centuries. Ships destroyed, fleets shattered, the rise of humanity from unknown species to galactic power. All of it impressive, all of it dramatic. But the real story, the one that mattered most, was happening right now. In lecture halls and training domes and quiet conversations between former enemies. In the slow, difficult work of building something better than what came before. Marcus Chen had won his war with weapons. His granddaughter would win hers with wisdom. Different battles. Same fierce determination, same absolutely terrifying Chen family smile. The galaxy would learn. Eventually, humans protected what they loved. Humans fought when necessary, and when humans made allies, those bonds lasted forever. Professor Varix learned this lesson at Seoul. The rest of the galaxy was still catching up, but they would get there. After all, humanity had time, and patience, and a tendency to turn enemies into friends through the simple act of refusing to stop trying. That was the real lesson of military history 401, not how to identify ancient warlords, but how to make sure the future needed fewer of them. And somewhere across the light years, on a planet called Earth, an old general smiled and prepared his lecture. Notes for a group of students who would finally understand what he had been fighting for all along, not victory understanding. The war was over. The peace was just beginning, and it would be glorious.